You're listening to the Dennis Prager Show, the Ultimate Issues Hour. An hour each week at this time devoted to some great issue of life. Doesn't get greater than the question of how do you reconcile all the unjust suffering in the world with the existence of God, specifically a good God. And I fully acknowledge that there comes a point where we cannot know the answer, and I find that persuasive. Me trying to understand everything and understand everything about God's ways is like my dog trying to understand any of my books. It's not available to us. This won't satisfy many of you, either religious or non-religious, or believer or non-believer, because you believe that there should be an answer to all questions. Since I know that we have finite minds, I can live with that finitude. And that's it. I can live with it. But beyond that, I blame human evil on humans. Of course, to a certain extent, I blame it on God, too, to be perfectly honest, because he created such a flawed being. I am not one of the admirers of humanity. I admire humans, but I have contempt for humanity. So, just as an aside, I've written an article on that, and I won't belabor that point now. There are terrific human beings, but humanity as a whole has a very unimpressive record. Highly unimpressive. That's why I always get a kick out of humanists. They can't believe in God, but they believe in humanity. What a crack-up. God's got a better record than humanity. All righty, let's go to some of your calls here. And let's go to Michael in Sammamish, Washington. Hello, Michael. Dennis Prager.
Hi, Dennis.
Where is Sammamish?
Where is Sammamish?
Yeah.
It's just east of Seattle, Washington.
Okay, I love the
Across
name.
the lake.
Go ahead.
This is really a great honor. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you.
It really is.
Thank you for the comment.
Just two things. I'll take your comments offline. First of all, I think we need to keep in mind that without evil, we have no way by which to judge what is good. So evil and good are kind of two sides of the same coin, if you will. But more deeply than that, God created us and desires for us freedom and free will.
Yeah,
And
you are, Michael, forgive me, you are explaining evil. The great question vis-a-vis God is not so much evil, but suffering that was natural, children born with tumors, not the evil that people freely choose.
Right. I just wanted to make the distinction between the two kinds of evil. Because the second point was I think more an answer to your question. There is an assumption in the question that we are to judge, say, an afterlife by this life. It may be the case that God tolerates tsunamis because he knows that those innocent children will be in a better place. I'm not saying that's the answer. I'm saying that is something to reflect on, in that life as we know it may not accurately reflect what God's intentions for us are after
right.
we
That's
die.
very good. That's very good, Michael. I agree with that. I agree, but it's a variation on my theme that we can't understand fully how God has made a world like that. The only problem that I have with that, and I do agree with everything that Michael said, and thank you again for your call, is that it doesn't. You see, saying that we go to a better place, which I have to believe. I mean, I have to believe it intellectually. If we die and everybody goes to something worse, that would really be a theological problem. But saying that doesn't answer the question fully, because you still have the problem of this world's suffering. All right, so that baby will go to a better place. But what about the parent of the child who was killed in the tsunami, who has to live out their life here with the daily horrific pain of the death of their child? So you see, I never minimize. This is something I need to explain to all of you. I never minimize the amount of suffering in this world, the amount of unjust pain. I believe deeply in God, but I don't allow myself to become intellectually weak by making the questions simpler or by denying the obvious. The obvious is that there is a staggering amount of unjust suffering on this planet, and that God made it that way. And if you say, well, you blame it on Adam and Eve, well, that doesn't fully answer it for me. Why would God make a world where all of my suffering is because of somebody else's choice? I believe that story. I don't know what the question of literal or not is not relevant to me, but I believe that story, and it's one of the genius stories of that ever was put into words. And I am prepared to believe, even in the consequences, the pain of childbirth, the pain of bringing forth bread from the earth, but it doesn't answer all of the suffering issue, even the Adam and Eve story. Okay, and let's go to a good challenge here in Sarasota, Florida. Richard. Hello, Richard. Dennis Prager.
Hi, Dennis. A pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.
I had just a question about a farmer, let's say, who has a great crop, and he thanks God, as I was taught to thank God for every blessing growing up. And it would just seem logical to be able to blame God for a bad crop or a devastating crop or a child lost.
There are two answers to that that immediately come to mind. First, it depends on what you consider to be the norm. If you consider good crops to be the norm, and that they just should be there for me, then you're right. But it seems to me that the miracle is not a bad crop. The miracle is that there are any good crops, that God made a world where we could feed ourselves as a gift. So I think that becomes the good crop is more exceptional than the bad crop. But your question is a good one. If we thank God for good things that happen to us, shouldn't we be angry at God or curse God or whatever is the opposite of thank for the bad things that happen? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dennis.
All right, you're very welcome. Actually, I have no problem with people who get angry with God. I think that you ought to. I mean, if God is your Father in heaven, did you ever get angry at your own father? Is it not allowed? Now, it has to be within bounds of respect and honor and so on, but yes, you can express anger at God. You have a real relationship with God. How could it just be one unidimensional way? Back in a moment, I'm Dennis Prager. Dennis Prager here, the Ultimate Issues Hour. It is the hour each week on some great issue of life. You know, it doesn't get greater than this. I don't mean great in the sense of fun, greater in the sense of importance. And that is reconciling God, the existence of or belief in a good God, with all the unjust suffering in the world. I have dealt with this my whole life. Anybody who thinks and believes has to deal with it. In the final analysis, just to recap very quickly and then go to more of your calls, there are two forms of unjust suffering: evil caused by humans and tragedy caused by nature. The nature one really raises more issues vis-a-vis the existence of a good God than does human evil, but the human evil one does too. Because the amount of it, the staggering amount of it that people have engaged in, you wonder, did God know how bad people would be? And you know, there are questions. You see, I have never found asking questions about God to be deleterious to my faith. It's never occurred to me. It's like, you know, asking questions about my parents has never quite affected my belief that they exist. Of course God exists. The questions then become about his nature and so on, but the idea that everything came about by itself is so absurd to me. It is so absurd that it doesn't dawn on me that there is no God. It dawns on me that there are real questions to be asked, and I have to figure out answers when possible. But it's all one colossal bad joke. I don't find that terribly intellectually persuasive, never